The following is paid programming. Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd, certified financial planner practitioner and founder of Asset Management Resources, LLC, a registered investment advisor firm. We call it Something More because we like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients across the country, your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
Welcome, everybody, to Something More with Chris Boyd. I'm here with Jeff Perry, both of us of Asset Management Resources. And Jeff, thanks for being with me as my co-host again.
My pleasure.
And, Veterans Day is upon us. And
It
so
is.
we talked about whether to have different organizations on, all these great organizations in our midst, whether it's Cape Cod Cares for the Troops or the Cape Cod Islands Veteran Outreach Center or the Heroes in Transition, and there's others as well. But those are the ones we routinely go to hear from. We thought maybe instead to change things up, we'd actually talk to a veteran for Veterans Day. So with that in mind, we're joined by John Alexander. Thanks for being with us, John.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
John, people know you from a lot of different ways. That's why we're struggling here. We were talking about how do you introduce John? For those who haven't caught up to you in a while, you are now a retired police officer, correct?
As of January.
Yeah. And how's that going?
Oh, it's wonderful. Get to enjoy a lot of time with the family that I missed during the years and kind of spend a lot of time with the two grandsons.
Awesome. People also know, Chris mentioned a couple of these organizations that we talk to frequently. You are connected to Heroes in Transition. We know that. We've seen you at events and all the stuff you do from them. I know that you had a role over at Cape Cod Community College, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But why don't we start out by you just sharing your military experience and why we're asking you to talk to us today on Veterans Day.
Well, I don't know why you're asking me, but to give you my background, lifelong Cape resident, grew up and graduated from Sandwich High, went off to college. I was 17 at the time, so my mom wouldn't sign off on me to go to the military. So I went off to college, and after about one semester up at Wentworth, I decided architecture and sitting in an office wasn't for me. So once I turned 18, I went down to the MEP station, signed up, and shipped out in 86. Active duty was my plan. I loved it. I was stationed in Germany for 3 years. And I, at the time, I really thought, that was my interest was I was going to be a lifer. But I had been offered an opportunity in basic to go to West Point Prep. And at the time, I just really didn't, I was not certain where I was going to land or not. So I didn't take the opportunity, and I kicked myself ever since. So after the 3-year stint in active duty, I decided I was going to come home, join the Guard, go to college, and then go back active duty and get a commission. Well, as you know, life gets in the way, and you meet a girl needs kids, and then family, and yeah. So after 9 years, I just got out. I had gotten the job with the police department here in the town of Barnstable. And in the last year of my service, first year of the police department overlap. So it was kind of difficult juggling that back and forth with 3 young kids at the time.
Very difficult. Yep.
Yeah. So we did that for a little while, and then 9/11 happened, and by that point we had 3 kids, twin 3-year-olds and a 5-year-old, and my unit was getting activated again for that. So Kristen and I had to really sit down and have a long conversation about what we were going to do, because all the guys that I served with in the Gulf were still in the same unit. And I felt just a tremendous amount of guilt that I wasn't there. So we had to have a conversation about what I was going to do. And after talking with a lot of them, they really eased that guilt. There was no reason for me to come back. So I just went on with life, and a nice long career in the police department, raised 3 wonderful kids. Kristen and I have been married for 32 years, and now that I'm retired, I mean, spent a lot of time with the veteran community, because that's where really my heart is.
John, I want to comment on something you said about that guilt. After you have served and worn the uniform and done your duty, it is probably the most common feeling that people have when they've, even those individuals who had a life career, 20, 30-year career in the military, when something comes up and there's a conflict, they still want to go back. That doesn't end. I talked to gentlemen in their 70s and 80s, and if this nation gave them a chance to put the uniform on again and go back into active duty and serve, they'd go today, right? So that feeling is a very common. Once you serve your country and you get the sense of what that means, and that sense of what it means to your country, but not more importantly, equally important, as you articulated, to your buddies, to the people you served with, that stays with you for the rest of your life.
Without a doubt. It's much like public safety too. Once you retire from that, you miss those guys, and then you're watching the news and something happens, and you're like, geez, would it have been any different if I was still there? Would I be there to support them or whatever? But yeah, that follows you no matter what. So that's
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to stay connected and got to stay involved with them, because they'll be the ones that tell you, no, you don't need to be here. Enjoy your life.
Yeah, you do have to let that torch pass to the next group of men and women who are standing up and serving. It's difficult to do, and your buddies are right to give you that advice, and you continue to serve in your own way in your own community. And part of the reason we wanted to have you on the show wasn't just because you served honorably in the armed forces, but because you
mentioned it in our conversation now, but off camera you mentioned participation in the Desert Storm conflicts.
Yeah, that was my deployment. I had just come off active duty in '89, enrolled in the Guard down here on South Street, and I was going to 4Cs, and Desert Storm was coming up, and Chris and I were just dating at the time, but they were looking to activate the engineering company, so I went over and volunteered with them, but they turned me down because what they couldn't tell me with a wink and a nod was that the unit I was in was also going to be activated as well, so they couldn't take me. Yeah. So Shortly thereafter, I get activated and sent over to the Gulf, and we're over there, and we're attached to an active duty battalion over there. And it turns out it was the same guys that I was actually with in Germany. It turned out the same guys, the same patches, same uniforms. They had all pretty much jumped a rank or two since I had gotten out, but right back over serving with them.
Very good. Very good. So anyway, Jeff, I just didn't want that to go past.
No, that's an important part of John's life for sure. John, you've mentioned the college, Cape Cod Community College. Tell us about the involvement that you've had with them over the years, not so much as a student, but serving veterans.
So right about 2018, 2019, I got a part-time job over there, not obviously for the money because I was working for the police department of the town, but as a military veterans services advisor, essentially walking the student veterans through the paperwork process, the enrollment process, a lot of the guidance and choosing classes, and making sure that they were taking advantage of the benefits that they had earned. There's a lot of people wouldn't really, you can ask questions all day long, but if you don't know the right questions or the right person, you're kind of just floating out there. So you find the right person, you get the information and take advantage of those benefits.
And so during the years that you did that, what are the big challenges that veterans have other than not knowing the right questions? Do they have a good concept of what their benefits actually are?
Some of them do, some of them don't. But there are benefits. It's most of the process of getting signed up for them and getting the check sent to the school, and then sort of coordinating between the school and the veteran themselves. So they get their monthly benefits, they get their BAH, they get their school paid for. But some of them aren't actually ready for college. They're just doing it because the benefit is there. And then if something were to happen, they get a bad grade or they decide something in life gets in the way and they take a break, and they kind of incur some debt in there. And then the debt becomes overwhelming as well. So you got to kind of work with students who maybe went in early, too young, not ready, and now they want to come back because they're more serious, they're more mature, and now we have to overcome the past that they had. So having an advisor that has a military background was a lot easier because I could advocate for them with the administration.
John, I have to tell you, the first time I really became aware of who you were was through social media when you were doing a race, and I don't remember which one it was. I think it was like not the Ruck, but it was like something to promote. And you were running a race, and I was like, "Can we just contribute to let this guy stop running?" Good God, this poor man, he's working his heart out trying to get this goal. You were I forget do you remember what it was? A year or two ago, maybe. It was anyway. You were one of a few people, and it was to raise money, obviously, for veterans through Heroes in Transition in this case. Let's talk a little bit about you and Kristen, both your spouse, are passionate about trying to help veterans and families. Tell about that and how you got into it and all that you've done. And you do the Ruck race. I've seen you do it last year. And how many years you've done that?
So Kristen and I were both involved in the original one from Ground Zero in New York.
From New York, right?
Yeah, that was 2016. I was just finishing up my master's program, so I didn't get to go out with the group. Instead, after I finished my dissertation, Kristen and I jumped in the car from Quincy, Milton, and we drove to New York, met up with the group there in the morning.
Wow.
And we all left from Ground Zero. And that was the first one. You can't, and that was just one team, but you can't do something like that with 15 teams running through the city of New York. It was just absolute chaos and mayhem. But that group proved that we could do it.
Yeah.
So from that point on, now we just do it on the Cape, and the first week of May every year, you'll see people running up and down the Cape from Bourne, Woods Hole out to P-Town and back. But they're running with packs on their backs, which is, there's no other group around that I know of that does anything like that. But it's all to raise awareness and funds.
Too, right, Jeff? You've joined in.
Yes, I participated. It's designed to simulate, what a soldier would be going through, meaning running with a pack on and running at all hours of the night and being part of a team, being part of a unit with a common goal, depending on each other. That's the genius of the event, is that even though
I don't think I could do it. I don't know how you guys have done it.
You can do it if you train. And train means really trained. This isn't one of those things, like you sign up for your 5K and say, "Oh, I think I can get through it, and if not, I can walk the last mile." This is a serious competition at some level. But the genius of it, as I was saying, is it's designed, even for those people who haven't been in the military, it's designed to create that environment where you're depending on each other and you're going through something for a few days towards a common goal. And it's
a lot of camaraderie.
Absolutely.
So you've done that numerous times, I guess, huh, John?
So since the 2016 one, this coming year is going to be the first time I'm not actually participating in the race, either as a team captain, a team driver, or a rucker. Chris and I are going to be kind of running just driving up and down the route and the course, keeping an eye on people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well,
we're going to be on Overwatch.
You're still helping. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Tell about some of the other things that you've done when it comes to helping families adjust and reacclimate from after their active duty and some of those kind of considerations.
So within the police department there, with the chief's blessing, we had from top to bottom at the time we started 38 service members, either veterans or currently serving. So with his blessing, we started an outreach unit within the department. We were encountering more and more veterans, in critical incident type situations, and we didn't really know what the resources out there were for veterans. So we did that. We teamed up with Adam Dorfler over at the Vet Center on West Main Street, and we have sort of a veterans resource officers. Of the 15 towns on the Cape now, there are, I think, 13 are represented, plus Wareham, plus Wampanoag Tribal Police. And we meet on a monthly basis. We share stories, insight, resources, so that when we have an incident and we're able to identify someone as a service member, one of the outreach team members from the police department will be the point of contact, the primary point of contact. Because when someone's in crisis, there's no talking them down. There's no amount of calm down, we're here to help, is going to get you through that situation. But we found that being a service member yourself and being that contact person for the person in crisis has had a dramatic effect on the reduction of violence, self-harm. The person somehow, there's a rapport there that is built as you just meet. You know, you walk up and you start talking about a branch of service or an occupational specialty, and all of a sudden you guys are talking in acronyms and nobody else knows what you're talking about, but the person forgets what precipitated, why are the police here at my house right now? They forget all about that, and all of a sudden they just start talking. And talking, as you know, is cathartic. And you get them out there, the crisis gets the temperature gets brought down, and now we know what the resources are. So now we can get them the help that they need and not just kind of push them off to the next call. You know, fingers crossed, nothing happens in the meantime. So within the police department, that is still going now. I think there's 24 members of that unit. I've passed the baton there. As you mentioned, Heroes in Transition, the Veterans Group Facilitator. So we have monthly events and programs for that.
John, go into a couple of those events that people, our listeners may have heard of Heroes Transitions. They may know about the Ruck that we touched on, but what other types of services does Heroes in Transition provide?
So, and there's financial support, there's canine services, there's home modification service, and then there's social events, because as you know, seclusion is probably the worst thing you can do when you come back. When you're finding it hard to transition back to civilian life and you stay indoors and you don't go out and socialize, it becomes
the worst thing and the most common thing, right?
Yeah, it's a downward spiral. So what we do is we put on events, and the veterans have a monthly event. There are events for the military spouses as well. And all these programs are designed because they have common experiences, common life, things that they've gone through that only the spouses can understand. So they have events every other month. We have events also for the couples together. So the military couple gets out and socializes with other military couples. And then there's also family events. So the service member, his or her spouse and partner, and their children get together with other military families, and they start talking about that. Oh yeah, my dad's not here right now. Oh, mine's not here either. Because he's deployed or something. And then they come running back. They, mom, so and so's dad is deployed too. And it's a environment and a social network that's outside of the unit that sort of supports these families. They become bound to each other and a network of support and help if things get kind of tough. So the events, we do everything from horseback riding to kayaking, stand-up paddle boarding. We do to baseball, hockey games. We do hikes. Trying to think of some other things at the top of my head. We do axe throwing, cornhole tournaments, anything to really get out and socialize with other people, either whether you're veterans, whether you're the spouses, people who have common experiences. And without saying it's therapy, it becomes very therapeutic. These guys and girls end up making phone calls to each other after the event's over, and then you have sort of another friend or somebody else you can lean on to when things get kind of tough.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, it's it's kind of amazing to think that so much of this grassroots help is cropped up, that you and other veterans and organizations that are local have created and developed with this in mind to do something constructive. Let's maybe just talk where it is Veterans Day. We have so many great organizations in our midst, lots of activities that probably have already happened at this point, but I guess for our listeners, we all think about and care about making sure that our veterans are well cared for. Government benefits only go so far. There's some
Absolutely.
resources, but not enough.
Right.
And so, this is an occasion for us as we celebrate veterans and appreciate their gift of service. Let's take this opportunity to also think about those veterans organizations that we can help people locally. When it comes to this time of year, it's a time of year when people often think about charitable donations and charitable giving. So many of these organizations depend on charitable intent and charitable resources. And this is an opportunity for you to have an impact, reach people where they need it. And these organizations know that. So Heroes in Transition, one great example, helping these families and all these different ways that John's just talked about. Veterans Outreach Center, helping people who are maybe going through homelessness or food insecurity, reaching out in ways that are slightly different and reaching a different constituency. And then, I think of Cape Cod Cares for the Troops, maybe even helping people who are in the service today, not yet veterans, but this time of year, they do a lot to help with active duty members.
Absolutely, Chris. That reminds me of a quote from George Washington that I'm not going to get right because I don't have it in front of me. But he said, "The willingness of the next generation to serve their country in the military is wholly dependent on how the current generation of veterans is treated." I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And so Cape Cod Cares for the Troops is doing that right now, coming up this Thanksgiving weekend, where they send care packages across the world to men and women who are serving on active duty. And you can check out their website as well, capecodcaresforthetroops.org. And they do this annually for, I don't know, last 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to support the men and women who are still serving us today, that generation who stepped up and answered the call. So you're totally right. There's a lot of great organizations who deserve our support to help them support our veterans.
John, thanks for coming on and talking with us. Just having an occasion to remind our listeners about the importance of Veterans Day and the needs of our veterans. And as much as, we might think of some of these big conflicts having diminished, and the needs of our veterans are ongoing, and we can make a difference just by the things we do here locally. So thanks for being.
Thank you for your service, John, and thank you for the service of all of our veterans listening.
That's my greatest honor. That's the funny thing about all these different organizations. It's like we all work together.
Right.
You mentioned 4 or 5 of them. But what people don't know is that we do actually work together, because it's not a competition. These guys and girls need our support, and we're there to help them no matter how we do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for all you're doing. All right. And with that, we will conclude our program. Until next time, keep striving for something more.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's financial planning, portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at amrfinancial.com or call us toll free at 866-771-8901 or send us your questions to radio@amrfinancial.com.